Dr. Naomi Rivera had seen her share of desperate cases during her tenure at the Outer Rim Medical Station, but nothing could have prepared her for what she found in the abandoned Helios Research Station. The emergency beacon had been broadcasting for 3 days before anyone picked it up, a weak signal that most ships would have ignored. But Naomi hadn't spent 15 years as a frontier doctor by ignoring calls for help. The station's corridors were dark, emergency lighting casting violet shadows across walls covered in a thin layer of frost. Her breath came out in small clouds as she moved through the facility, medical scanner humming softly in her hands. The readout showed a single life sign, faint but persistent, somewhere in the lower levels. "This is Dr. Rivera performing emergency response sweep of Helios Station," she spoke into her suit's recorder. "Single biosign detected, unidentified species, environmental systems minimal, temperature at -3°C. The lift to the lower levels was dead, forcing her to use the maintenance shaft. As she descended, her thoughts drifted to the station's last known status, a joint human-Xylaxian research facility studying deep space phenomena. It had been abandoned nearly a month ago under mysterious circumstances, with both sides claiming the other had violated terms of the Scientific Cooperation Agreement. The biosign grew stronger as she reached sublevel 3. Here, the frost was thicker, forming delicate patterns across the walls like alien fingerprints. Her scanner led her to what appeared to be a medical bay, its doors sealed by emergency protocols. It took her emergency override codes and 10 precious minutes to get them open. The figure lying on the medical bed was unmistakably Xylaxian, but unlike any Naomi had seen before. Where most of their species had luminescent purple skin, this one's epidermis was a deep midnight blue, marked with intricate patterns that seemed to shift in the dim light. Their characteristic head crest was more elaborate, suggesting royal lineage, but it was damaged. Several of the sensitive appendages were broken or scarred. "Hello." Naomi approached carefully, keeping her movements slow and deliberate. "I'm a doctor. I'm here to help." The Xylaxian's eyes opened, revealing iridescent orbs that seemed to contain swirling galaxies. When they spoke, their voice was barely a whisper, the universal translator in Naomi's suit struggling to parse the words. "You should not have come. They will return." Naomi's medical training took over as she began scanning for injuries. "Who will return? What happened here?" "My own people. I am Princess Ixura of the 7th House. I sought peace. They called it treason." The princess's breathing was labored, her body temperature dangerously low even for a Xylaxian. "The Warhawks. They plan to strike Earth. I try to warn, to prevent." "Save your strength," Naomi interrupted, already unpacking her medical kit. The scanner showed multiple internal injuries, severe hypothermia, and signs of what appeared to be poison in the princess's system. "I'm going to stabilize you. Then we'll figure out our next move." As she worked, Naomi's mind raced through the implications. The Xylaxian Empire had maintained an uneasy peace with Earth for the past decade, but rumors of war had been growing. If what Princess Ixura said was true, this wasn't just a medical emergency. It was potentially the first spark of an interstellar conflict. The princess grabbed Naomi's arm with surprising strength. "Why help me? Your people and mine. We stand on the brink of war." Naomi carefully administered a universal antidote, watching as the princess's vital signs began to stabilize. "Because I took an oath to preserve life, regardless of species, politics, or consequences. And right now, you're my patient." A warning light flashed on her suit's display. Another ship was approaching the station. Naomi's heart rate spiked, but her hands remained steady as she continued treatment. She had maybe 20 minutes before they docked. Assuming they were hostile. "They're coming," Ixura whispered, trying to rise. "The purifiers, my father's zealots. They will kill us both." "Not if I can help it," Naomi replied, already formulating a plan. The station's lower levels connected to maintenance tunnels that led to the emergency shuttle bays. if she could stabilize the princess enough for transport. The station's remaining systems suddenly blared to life, red emergency lights painting the walls in blood-colored hues. A mechanical voice echoed through the corridors. Warning. Unauthorized vessel attempting emergency dock. Warning. Naomi made her decision. With practiced efficiency, she began disconnecting Ixora from the medical equipment, preparing her for emergency transport. Your Highness, I hope you don't mind, but we're about to break about 15 different interstellar protocols. For the first time, a ghost of a smile crossed the princess's alien features. Doctor, I believe we are about to break far more than that. The sound of the docking clamps engaging reverberated through the station like distant thunder. As Naomi activated her mobile medical stasis field around the princess, she knew she was crossing a line from which there would be no return. Her oath as a doctor had always come first, but now that oath was about to test her in ways she never imagined. The hunt was about to begin, and the hunters would show no mercy to a human doctor harboring their empire's most wanted fugitive. But as Naomi helped Princess Ixora into the emergency transport chair, she felt something she hadn't experienced since her first days as a frontier doctor. The pure, crystalline certainty that she was doing exactly what she was meant to do, consequences be damned. Hold tight, Your Highness, she said, checking the charge on her medical stasis unit. This is going to be one hell of a house call. The maintenance tunnels of Helios Station were never meant for emergency evacuations, but Naomi had learned long ago that desperate times required creative solutions. She guided the medical transport chair through the narrow passages, Princess Ixora's vital signs steadily beeping on her portable monitor. Doctor, Ixora's voice was stronger now, though still strained. The data core, we cannot leave without it. Sublevel 5, Quantum Storage Unit 3. The heavy footsteps of the purifiers echoed through the station's ventilation system. They were methodically searching each level, and it wouldn't take them long to find the abandoned medical bay. Your Highness, you're barely stable. We need tow. The evidence is there, Ixora interrupted. Proof of the War Council's plans, of the weapons they've built in violation of every treaty. Without it, millions will die. Naomi checked her suit's chronometer. The emergency shuttle was 4 minutes away, and Sublevel 5 would add at least 10 to their escape route. But the gravity in Ixora's voice was unmistakable. Can you stay stable for 10 more minutes? The princess's skin rippled with bioluminescent patterns, a Zylaxian expression of grim determination. I did not survive 7 days of their torture to fail now. Naomi adjusted their course, taking them deeper into the station's guts. The maintenance tunnels here were older, designed during the initial construction phase. She had to manually override several security airlocks, each second feeling like an eternity as the override codes processed. The quantum storage facility was a fortress of security measures, but the station's emergency protocols had left certain systems vulnerable. Naomi's medical credentials, combined with the princess's royal biosignature, gave them just enough access to reach Unit 3. There, Ixora pointed with a trembling hand. The crystalline matrix with the purple glow. The data core was smaller than Naomi expected, barely larger than her palm. As she carefully removed it from its housing, alarms blared throughout the facility. The purifiers had found the medical bay. Time to go. Naomi secured the core in her medical kit and resumed their desperate journey to the shuttle bay. The transport chair's whisper-quiet engines were a blessing now, allowing them to move swiftly through the darkness without attracting attention. They were halfway to the shuttle when Ixora's vital signs suddenly crashed. The poison in her system was adapting to the antidote, attacking her organs with renewed vigor. Naomi had to stop, her hands flying over the medical controls. "Leave me," Ixora whispered, her midnight blue skin turning ashen. "Save yourself. Save the data." Not happening. Naomi pulled out her last vial of synthetic plasma. It was designed for human physiology, but with some rapid modifications. "This is going to hurt, and I'm breaking about 6 different medical regulations, but it should buy us time." The princess screamed as the modified plasma entered her system, a sound that would surely alert their pursuers, but her vital signs stabilized, and that was all that mattered. The shuttle bay was tantalizingly close when they encountered their first purifier. The towering figure emerged from a cross corridor, its ceremonial armor gleaming with religious symbols. Unlike the princess, its purple skin was flawless, marking it as one of the pure bloodlines. Naomi reached for her medical kit, mind racing through the chemical compounds at her disposal. The purifier raised its weapon and suddenly staggered as Princess Ixora launched herself from the transport chair, driving a broken piece of medical equipment into a gap in its armor. "You would kill your own princess," Ixora snarled, her royal crest flaring with rage. "Your ancestors would weep at what you've become." The purifier collapsed, its weapon clattering to the deck. Naomi rushed to catch Ixora before she fell, the princess's burst of strength already fading. "That," Naomi said as she helped Ixora back into the chair, "was extremely stupid from a medical perspective." Sometimes, Ixora managed a weak smile. The best medicine is a sharp object in the right place. They reached the shuttle bay with less than a minute to spare. The emergency shuttle was small, designed for 2 humans at most, but it would have to do. As Naomi secured the princess in the medical crash sheet, more purifiers burst into the bay. The shuttle's engines roared to life as weapons fire scared its hull. Naomi's fingers flew over the controls, bypassing safety protocols and diverting power from life support to the shields. They lifted off in a storm of energy blasts, the shuttle's structural integrity screaming warnings. But they were away. As the station receded behind them, Naomi set course for the nearest neutral space station, a journey of at least 12 hours. 12 hours during which she would have to keep her patient alive, evade pursuit, and somehow figure out what to do with evidence that could prevent an interstellar war. Ixora watched the stars through the shuttle's viewport, her expression unreadable. "You do realize, Doctor, that you are now technically guilty of kidnapping a member of the Xylaxian royal family." Among other things, Naomi checked the princess's vital signs again. "But right now, my biggest crime is practicing medicine without proper xenobiological certification. The rest we'll figure out as we go." The princess's laugh turned into a cough, but her eyes held a spark of hope that hadn't been there before. "You humans, you never do anything by half measures, do you?" "No," Naomi agreed, watching their pursuers fall behind on the scanner. "We really don't. Space is vast, but not vast enough when you're running from an empire." Naomi learned this lesson during their 12th hour of flight, when the shuttle's sensors detected 3 Xylaxian warships emerging from hyperspace. "They're earlier than expected," Ixora observed from her medical bed, where Naomi had finally stabilized her condition. "My father must be more desperate than I thought." Naomi studied the tactical display, her mind racing through options that were becoming increasingly limited. "Those ships, they're not military standard, are they?" "No." Ixora's bioluminescent patterns flickered with concern. "They bear the marks of House Tyrax. Mercenaries, loyal only to credits and whoever currently holds their contracts. My father has grown bold indeed to employ them so openly." The shuttle's comm system crackled to life with a message in both Xylaxian and Standard. "Medical transport vessel. This is Commander Vex of House Tyrax. You carry stolen property of the Xylaxian Empire. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Stolen property. Ixora's laugh was bitter. How diplomatic of them to not mention they're hunting their own princess. Naomi activated the data core they'd retrieved, its crystalline structure projecting streams of information into the shuttle's small cabin. "Maybe it's time we see exactly what your father is so afraid of." The data was overwhelming. Weapon schematics, strategic planning documents, communication logs. But what caught Naomi's attention was a series of medical files, heavily encrypted but bearing her professional watermark. "These are human medical protocols," she muttered, digging deeper. "Research from the frontier stations. They've been studying our emergency medical procedures. But why Wold? She stopped, horror dawning as she understood. Because Ixora's voice was heavy with shame. They needed to understand how to hurt you most effectively. The War Council doesn't just want to defeat Earth. They want to ensure that no human survivor can ever receive medical aid. They've engineered weapons specifically designed to make wounds untreatable. Naomi felt sick. As a doctor, she had seen the aftermath of many weapons. But this was an abomination. Your own scientists helped develop this. Not willingly. Ixora's patterns shifted to deep mourning colors. Many disappeared when they refused. Others were given a choice between cooperation and watching their families suffer. This is why I had to act, why I tried to warn your people. But I was discovered before I could reach Earth's ambassadors. The pursuing ships were closing in, their weapons systems powering up. Naomi had maybe 2 minutes to make a decision that would affect billions of lives. The nearest neutral station is too far, she said, already adjusting their course. But I know somewhere closer. Somewhere they won't expect us to go. Ixora read the new coordinates and her bioluminescence flared with alarm. The scared zone. Doctor, nothing survives there. The quantum storms will tear us apart. The storms are predictable if you know how to read them. I spent 3 years treating victims there, learned their patterns. Naomi's hands flew over the controls, preparing the shuttle systems. More importantly, those storms interfere with Zelaxian targeting systems. Your father's mercenaries won't dare follow us in. And if your predictions are wrong, then we'll die, Naomi said simply. But if we don't try, billions will suffer something worse than death. I took an oath to do no harm. Sometimes that means taking the harder path. The quantum storms of the scared zone loomed ahead, their swirling energies casting ethereal lights across the shuttle's viewport. Behind them, the first warning shots from the pursuing ships lit up space. Doctor, Ixora's patterns had shifted to something Naomi had never seen before, respect mixed with something deeper. I begin to understand why the War Council fears your people so much. It's not your weapons or technology they fear. It's this unbending dedication to your principles, even in the face of certain doom. Naomi programmed the final approach vector, watching as the storm's energy readings matched the patterns she remembered. We're about to find out if that dedication was wisdom or foolishness. Hold tight, Your Highness. This is going to be unlike any treatment you've ever experienced. The shuttle plunged into the quantum storms, reality itself seeming to twist around them. Behind them, the mercenary ships pulled up, unwilling to risk their vessels in the maelstrom. As energy cascaded across their shields, and the shuttle systems screamed in protest, Naomi realized that their journey had moved beyond a simple rescue. They weren't just fighting for one life anymore. They were racing to prevent a war that would redefine the very concept of cruelty. And somewhere in these storms, if they survived, lay the next piece of their increasingly complex puzzle. Because Naomi knew something she hadn't yet told the princess. The scared zone hadn't always been empty, and if her old contacts were still alive, they might just find the allies they desperately needed. The storm swallowed them whole, and for a moment, everything was light and chaos. Then, in the heart of the impossible, Naomi saw exactly what she was hoping for, a pattern in the quantum fluctuations that could only be artificial. Someone was home after all. The quantum storms parted to reveal something that shouldn't exist. A station, seemingly built from the wreckage of a dozen different spacecraft, floating in an artificially calm eye of the maelstrom. Its design defied conventional engineering, with sections that appeared to phase in and out of normal space. Sanctuary Station, Naomi explained as she guided their damaged shuttle toward a flickering docking port. A refuge for those who've run out of everywhere else to run. I've never seen technology like this, Ixora observed, her scientific curiosity temporarily overriding her pain. Those quantum stabilizers, they're years beyond anything the Empire has developed. That's because they're not from any known civilization. Naomi initiated docking procedures. The station's builders, well, let's just say they had good reasons to hide here. The docking clamps engaged with a shutter, and a decontamination field swept through the shuttle. Naomi helped Ixora into the transport chair, noting with concern that the princess's condition was deteriorating again. The quantum storms had interfered with the medical stasis field more than she'd anticipated. They were met at the airlock by a figure that caused Ixora to gasp, a being that appeared to be made of crystalline structures and shifting light, its form barely contained within a sophisticated environmental suit. Dr. Rivera. The being's voice resonated directly in their minds. We had wondered if you would return. Hello, Guardian 6. Naomi managed a tired smile. We need sanctuary and medical assistance, and we bring warning of a war that could destabilize this entire sector. The crystalline being studied them for a long moment, its internal lights pulsing with complex patterns. You always did have a talent for understatement, Doctor. Come, the others will want to hear this. They were led through corridors that seemed to bend reality, passing beings from a dozen known species and several that Naomi had never seen before. Many wore the marks of exile, injury, or desperation that drove them to seek refuge in the scared zone. The medical bay they were brought to was a hybrid of technologies, some recognizable and others completely alien. A team of diverse beings immediately began treating Ixora, their methods seamlessly blending different medical traditions. The poison in her system, the chief medical officer, a six-armed being with iridescent scales, noted. It's adaptive, designed to resist treatment. Ingenious but cruel. My father's work, Ixora confirmed weakly. He always did prefer elegant solutions to his problems. While the medical team worked, Naomi presented their evidence to the station's council. A gathering of beings who had all, in their own ways, stood against the tides of history. The Data Corps' revelations caused ripples of alarm through the assembled refugees. These weapons, Guardian 6 observed, they violate not just treaties, but the fundamental laws of civilized space. To deliberately design weapons that prevent medical treatment, it goes against everything we fled here to preserve. The Empire must be stopped, another council member, a scared veteran of some forgotten war, growled. But we are outcasts, hunted. What can we do against such power? Naomi stepped forward. We don't need to fight them directly. We just need to get this evidence to Earth's Central Command and the Galactic Council. With proof of these violations, the Empire's allies will abandon them. They'll be forced to stand down. You assume, a new voice cut through the chamber, that they'll give us the chance. The speaker emerged from the shadows. A Zalaxian wearing the tattered remnants of an admiral's uniform, his purple skin bearing the same distinctive patterns as Ixora's. Uncle Ravix. Ixora's patterns flared with shock. They told me you were dead. Nearly was. The former admiral approached, his movements bearing the weight of old injuries. Your father's assassins were thorough, but it seems exile has its advantages. He turned to the council. My niece speaks truth. My brother, her father, has fallen into madness, convinced the humanity must be eliminated before they spread their contaminating influence further. The rescue beacons, Naomi suddenly realized. The Empire has been studying how humans respond to distress calls, testing our protocols, our willingness to help even potential enemies. Precisely. Ravix nodded grimly. They see your species' compassion as a weakness to be exploited. But perhaps, he looked around the gathered council, perhaps it is time to show them true strength. The station shuddered suddenly, alarms blaring. A technician rushed into the chamber. Multiple ships emerging from the storms. They'd found a way to track us. House Tyrax. Ixora's patterns shifted to warning colors. They must have analyzed our storm navigation route. Guardian 6 rose, its crystalline form pulsing with energy. Then they will learn why we chose the scared zone as our home. Dr. Rivera, get your patient to the secure medical bay. The rest of you, battle stations. It seems exile has not made us as forgotten as we had hoped. As Naomi rushed Ixora through the chaos of battle preparations, she caught glimpses of the station's hidden defenses emerging, Weapons and shields unlike anything she'd ever seen, powered by the same quantum energies that made the storms so deadly. "Doctor," Ixora grabbed her hand as they reached the medical bay. "Whatever happens, know that you've done more than save my life. You've given hope to those who had none." Outside, the quantum storms began to rage with unnatural fury as Sanctuary Station prepared to reveal its true power. The final battle for the future of humans-election relations was about to begin, and Naomi found herself at its heart, no longer just a frontier doctor, but a keeper of truths that could reshape the galaxy. If they survived the next few hours, the battle for Sanctuary Station unfolded unlike any conflict in known space. The quantum storms themselves seemed to fight alongside the exiles, responding to technologies that defied conventional understanding. House Tyrax's warships found their advanced targeting systems worse than useless, their own weapons turning back on them through twisted space. In the secure medical bay, Naomi worked frantically to complete Ixora's treatment. The princess's uncle, Admiral Revix, had provided crucial information about the poison's design, allowing the medical team to finally synthesize an effective antidote. The station's outer defenses are failing. Guardian Zix's mental voice echoed through the medical bay. More Imperial ships are arriving. They're adapting to the storm patterns. "How long do we have?" Naomi asked, not looking up from her work. "Perhaps 20 minutes. We're preparing to evacuate the non-essential personnel through the quantum corridors." Ixora struggled to sit up, her midnight blue skin finally regaining its natural luminescence. "We can't run. Not this time. Doctor, help me stand." "Your Highness, the treatment isn't. My people are about to commit an atrocity that will haunt our civilization for generations." Ixora's voice carried the weight of her royal heritage. "I cannot hide while that happens." A massive impact rocked the station. Through the bay's viewport, they watched as one of House Tyrax's destroyers crashed through a storm barrier. Its hull scarred by quantum energies, but its weapons still firing. The primary communications array is hit. A technician's voice crackled over the station's comm. "We can't transmit the evidence." Naomi looked at her patient, then at her medical scanner, then back at the princess. She made her decision. "Guardian Zix, I need access to the station's medical emergency broadcast system. The quantum beacon." The crystalline being's surprise was evident even through its mental voice. "Doctor, that's meant for coordinating emergency medical responses across." It paused, understanding dawning. "Ah, yes, of course." Every medical facility in known space maintained quantum emergency beacons, a network designed to coordinate responses to major disasters. They were hardened against interference, protected by treaties older than the Empire itself. "If we can't transmit to military channels," Naomi explained as she began connecting the data core to the medical network, "we'll send it to every hospital, every medical station, every clinic in the sector. Let them see what the Empire plans to do to their patients." Ixora's patterns shifted to display complex emotions. The Empire can't stop medical communications without violating the most sacred laws of civilization. Laws even my father wouldn't dare break. The station shuddered again as more Imperial ships arrived. Admiral Revix burst into the medical bay, his uniform scorched. "Whatever you're planning, do it fast. They're preparing to board." Naomi's fingers flew over the medical console, preparing the data for transmission. But there was a problem. The quantum beacon required enormous power to reach across the sector, power the damaged station no longer had. "The storms," Guardian Zix suddenly announced. "They're quantum energy in its purest form. If we could channel them." "You'd need a living conduit," Ixora realized. "Someone with natural quantum sensitivity. Someone like." Her patterns began to glow with unprecedented brightness. "No." Ravix understood immediately. "The energy would kill you. I'm already dead in my father's eyes." Ixora stood, drawing on strength she shouldn't have had. "But I can choose what my death means." Before anyone could stop her, The princess placed her hands on the quantum beacon's crystalline matrix. Her natural bioluminescence flared impossibly bright as she connected with the storm's energy. Through her, the quantum beacon powered up, drawing on energies that existed beyond normal space. Naomi initiated the transmission, watching as the evidence of the Empire's plans spread across the medical network. In moments, every healer in the sector would know what was coming. They would prepare, warn others, make it impossible for the weapons to achieve their heinous purpose. The Imperial ships suddenly stopped firing. On their communications channels, chaos erupted as the evidence spread. Orders were countermanded, allegiances questioned, and in the palace of the Xylaxian Empire, a father realized his daughter had finally outmaneuvered him. Ixora collapsed as the transmission completed, her patterns barely visible. Naomi caught her, medical scanner already running diagnosis. "Did it work?" the princess whispered. "See for yourself." Naomi turned her patient so she could see the viewport. Throughout the quantum storms, ships were powering down their weapons. On their screens, messages of support were pouring in from medical facilities across known space. The Empire's carefully hidden atrocity had been exposed, and the wave of revulsion was universal. The hospitals. Ixora managed a weak smile. Of course, were better to reveal an attack on healing itself. In the days that followed, the revelation would reshape the political landscape. The Empire's allies withdrew support. Its own people demanded answers, and the weapons program was exposed to the light of public scrutiny. But more importantly, something new was born in the scared zone. Sanctuary Station became known throughout civilized space, not just as a refuge, but as a symbol of what could be achieved when beings chose to heal rather than harm. Its medical bay became a center for collaborative medicine, where healers from all species could learn from each other. Ixora survived, though the quantum energies had changed her permanently. Her midnight blue skin now shimmered with tiny storms, marking her as something unique in the galaxy. She chose to remain at the station, working alongside Naomi to develop new ways of helping those the Empire had cast aside. "You know," Naomi said to her one day, as they watched ships from across the galaxy dock at the station's medical bay, "when I found you on Helios Station, I was just trying to save one life." Ixora's quantum-touched patterns rippled with amusement. "And instead, you saved millions by simply doing what humans do best, helping those in need, regardless of the cost." "We all did," Naomi corrected, looking around at the diverse beings who now called the station home. "Sometimes, the greatest victories don't come from fighting evil, but from simply refusing to let it stop us from doing good." Above them, the quantum storms continued their eternal dance, no longer a barrier but a reminder that in the darkest places, hope could take root and grow into something extraordinary. The war had been prevented not through force of arms, but through the simple, unshakable dedication to the principle that all life was worth saving. And in the end, that had made all the difference.